Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Wandering Road podcast. I'm your co-host Dean, alongside my stalwart host Chris, and today we're going to be talking about something that you might find on the surface a little bit meh, because for years it was a little bit meh, but it's kind of making its ways around social media again, and all the video recordings that we've seen supposedly of this thing happening has caught our eye, and we're going to be talking about it today, and that is crop circles and what is behind them. Is it human complete fabrication? Are they actually being formed by orbs? Or as some people have shown them in illustrations, being formed by like UFOs coming down? We're going to talk about it today. And I think it's going to be an interesting one because it's something we've never touched on in this entire thing that we've ever done. All of the episodes, I don't think we brought crop circles up once, even though we've talked about aliens like tons of times. We've never talked about it. So, Chris, when you hear crop circle, is it like Snorefest because like we grew up in the 90s, or is it kind of like if you put some thought to it, it could be actually really interesting?
With crop circles, you remember, was it the X-Files or one of those shows where they would have the like creepy music in the background and there would be crop circles and
Oh,
stuff?
in the intro, I think that was the X Files.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
I think I remember.
X-Files, and then they would
Mhm.
have the intro to the episode if it was about crop circles, and it's like
Right.
in late 1975
Yeah, super
in a
dark and
in a farm in England. There
next to a cow.
right? It was so over dramatized,
Overhyped. Yeah.
overhyped at the
Dramatized and
time.
yeah.
I personally don't think the topic is overhyped. I think it's an interesting topic because there are so many avenues that you could go down to discuss this. Obviously, in the 90s, with the whole fucking alien hysteria, that they made it this horror type of thing. Like, oh,
Right.
those aliens around. They're gonna come down. They're gonna get you. You're gonna get abducted. They're gonna probe your butt. And it's
Yeah,
one of
that was the
those.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah, the South Park episode where they put a fucking satellite in Cartman's ass. But,
There was a funny show. I don't know if it was like American Dad. There was something where the guy gets abducted and he like takes off his he's like, oh fuck, fine. Let's just get this over with. And he pulls his ass out in front of the aliens, and the aliens are like, stop. We've learned all we could from the human anus. Like we don't need to do that anymore. I think it was maybe it was Futurama, but it
it
was just
probably
like a
was.
funny like jab at like how much can you actually learn from a human anus? Like you've been doing this for like 50 to 100 years of recorded instances of people getting probed up the butt, and like you got to think like you can only learn so much. When does it
Right.
become like alien science and then they kind of just keep doing it because it becomes a taboo? And oh my god.
That's why it's just one
Hey,
ship and two of them because they're gonna get in
one
trouble for that shit.
it's one naughty messed up alien who's into S&M. He's like the less smart one, and he just comes down and he's just the one guy who's been probing everyone's butt for like 100 years, and he's an embarrassment to all the other aliens.
They're like, "Dude, just go away."
Yeah, cut it
And
out.
he comes up to you, he's like, "My
What
dad
about
owns
the
a
pee hole?
dealership." Like, "My dad, he owns a dealership?" "Yeah, his dad owns a dealership." Only a few people would get that.
Yeah, dude, my dad, he owns a dealership. That was, by the way, that was voiced by one of my all-time favorite comedians, Patton Oswalt, did the voice of that
Oh.
guy. And
Yeah, we're
if
talking
you don't know
about
what we're talking about,
Aquatine.
yeah, it's Aqua Teen Hunger Force. It's a really old episode of Aqua Teen Hunger Force where it's like the space alien, and it's voiced by Patton Oswalt, and it's just funny shit. I got to rewatch that whole series. It's time to rewatch it. It's been over a year since I watched any of it. I think it's time to revisit it.
I agree. But back to crop circles. So the way things were in the 90s, everything was so scary, everything was so taboo that I feel like crop circles kind of got lost in the mix there. I think it's really intriguing. I think it's one of those topics where you can argue either way, whether it's a human hoax or there's something extraterrestrial trying to leave messages, but you think at this point they would probably get the hint that we don't understand what the fuck you're writing in these circles. Unless you're sending a message in like binary code, then we can probably decipher what you're saying.
I'm 100% with you on that. Here's the thing with crop circles. There is documented evidence, or there's documented proof because people have come out and claimed that they've shown how they've done. There's people who have faked it. They have faked. They're still alive today. They explained how they did it. So there are people who have faked crop circles. That to me is different because, well, I mean, now in this day and age where you have UAVs and drones and stuff that people can personally own, then it becomes easier in my mind to fake UFO sightings. Crop circles to me are that one UFO related phenomena that has absolutely documented proof that there are fakes out there. Whereas alien sightings for the first 100 years of humanity, no normal person is going to easily fake a light in the sky. That's the first hang up for me is crop circles are a little less interesting in the sense that they could be so easily faked and they have been faked. But here's the flip side to that. The flip side is there are cases where there's some of them are just so intricate and there are real
Yes.
pieces of evidence to suggest that nobody could have gotten in and out of this location at this certain time unless they were like literally flying. In addition to that, you said something that was also interesting that I think is important is if like crop circles are legit, people see them as communication methods. And I think the reason why that might hold up is because if you bring back up what we've talked about before, which is aliens could be so far advanced beyond our current level of awareness and understanding. They could have emotions and ways of processing information in their brains or whatever they use to process information. It could be miles and miles and miles ahead of us to the point where they cannot bridge our communication style with theirs. And the only way they could think to do it is to give these messages, like you said, either in binary code or whether it's based off of some kind of element or set of elements in the universe, like whatever HO2, like, thing that they want to emphasize as a piece of information to try to bridge that gap. I think that could be a good answer as to why this started in the first place. Just like anything else, like something real happened, and then you have people who want to copy it and like ruin it for everybody else and like claim they saw something or did something. I think there are a set of legitimate instances of crop circles that are unexplainable and not done by humans.
So let's take a step back here. One of the oldest known reports of a crop circle comes from what? It was it 1678 or 1578?
1678.
It was a depiction of a mowing devil, a devil with like a scythe and like going through the field, making a crop circle essentially.
Go to Google or wherever your search engine is and type in the Mowing Devil pamphlet, and you can actually see the front page of called the Hartford. My old English or Middle English is shit, but Shire. I don't know if that's the F was an S back then, but the
Hart
Hartford something.
Hertfordshire?
Yeah,
Hertfordshire?
Hertfordshire, sure, yeah, exactly. Okay, so
Hertfordshire,
Hertfordshire
yeah.
pamphlet that was kind of the equivalent of like a newspaper back then, or like getting your information. It's a printing of this article about this story, and I'll let you tell the story, but it's very kind of creepy. Even though it came from the 1600s, it looks like a modern day crop circle. Like the way that it's illustrated, the way that the devil in the photo is cutting or mowing down the weed, or whatever it is, if it's wheat or grass, he's mowing it down with a scythe, but he's starting from the outside and working his way in. And that is interesting because the pattern itself seemed to suggest a way that you would cut grass it's not like that's not how you cut grass. Like that, the way that it's being formed is indicative of something that it has pattern recognition and like a predetermined idea of the sphere or the shape that it wants to create. So I don't know. That's what jumps out to me when I first look at that.
That makes sense. So looking at it right now, yeah, you describe it to a T. But basically, the story of this pamphlet and this image is that there was this farmer who's unknown, refused to pay the price that a farm worker wanted to mow the field. The farmer swore that he would rather have the devil mow it instead. And then at night, apparently, this flame appeared and the next morning, the field was perfectly mowed down, and they claimed no mortal man could have done this. So it had to have been the devil. And it's apparently, I wouldn't say it back then, they kind of knew what to call a crop circle, but now researchers refer to this as one of the first recorded cases of crop circles coming out
Yeah.
from 1678. But I want to stick on the topic of mortals creating crop circles. Back when crop circles were happening frequently, of course, it's always the 70s and 80s, dude. 70s, 80s, and 90s. I don't know what the fuck was going on that aliens took a really great interest or,
LSD.
whatever. LSD. Yeah, maybe. So you have the quote unquote pranksters of Doug and Dave, and I'm sure you can feel the irritation in my voice when I talk about them, right? Because they're like, oh, we take these 2x4s and we attach rope to them, and then we start pressing the crop on the ground, the corn stalk or whatever on the ground using these 2x4s, and then we just walk around in this pattern and make the circle pattern. Okay, that's fine. You could probably do that depending on how big you want the crop circle. Couple hours, 4 hours maximum, depending on how big you want the circle and how perfectly, aligned you want it. Fine. What about the ones that have elaborate fucking patterns? That have these
Yeah.
diamond patterns, things that look like fucking binary code, all these different things, and even images of things, like very complex design. You're telling me these two fucking assholes took with their planks, went and did that in the middle of a fucking field. So you have to understand, this is not like on the side of a fucking road. If someone drove out there to do that or walked out there to do that, there would be evidence of the area being disturbed. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter how slick you are, there's still going to be footprints. Things are not going to be in a natural position. And with these boards and stuff, whatever the fuck they were doing, there's no way it could be bent perfectly at
Yeah,
that
that's what I was gonna
angle.
say. Yeah,
There,
so
there's no
apparently
way.
there's a stark difference because I just looked it up. I'm like, okay, what's the difference between a confirmed fake crop circle that's where someone showed that how they did it and whatever versus one that's unconfirmed and complex and whatnot. And what I came back with is exactly what you started talking about, and that is in the examples where someone claimed to be the hoaxsters and they showed how they did it, the stocks of whatever they were bending or whatever they were creating the crop circles in, at least a good chunk of them, maybe not all of them, but there were at least some broken ones in those patterns, even if they all went in the same direction. Even more damning, when they use boards, apparently when you use boards to do this, like I guess what you would basically do is if you can envision this, if you've never seen it before, but the way that the hoaxsters fake these crop circles is they'll get like a big 2x4, drill holes in either end of the 2x4 and put like a big rope between it, and then they would basically put it around their shoulders and the rope would reach down to the board to the ground, and then they would just step with one leg and then push down with the other on the board to create the circle or like to bend the crops. But apparently, and I never knew this until now, the board leaves off a residue that actually chemically burns the crops that they're stepping on. Now, the reason why that's interesting to me is I had never heard of that. That's interesting because there are also cases in which, with the unexplained crop circles, the ones where no one came forward, the ones that are really intricate and unexplainable, a lot of times they don't have those chemical burns. And even in addition to that, what you were saying, there's no snapping of the crops. They're just bent. So the crops are
Yeah.
still alive. They are literally just bent, and even more so, they're swirled to like slightly bowed to the left or the right in a certain direction, which if you can imagine, you're pressing down on a 2x4, the crop is likely just going to fall as it goes in that direction, straight in the direction it's falling towards. But the ones that are like realistic or like more real, where they're not claimed to be fakes or whatever, they're kind of curved to the left or the right. That's something that's worth noting. That ticks up the confirmability of this whole thing by a lot.
Yeah, definitely. And then also you have to take into consideration what always gets me is the appearance of the crop circle, precision, and the unexplained changes to the environment and the unexplained changes to the soil, to the plant structure. On top of that, when people go to these crop circles, the magnetic field is like off, batteries drain
Yes,
instantly,
I forgot about that. Yep.
watches and other electronics either stop functioning or they go haywire, batteries get drained. So there's an electric phenomenon that comes along with it, an energetic phenomenon. That's why I have a hard time when folks like to just say, oh, it's hoaxed by people. There's no fucking way. No fucking way. I'm not trying to insult anybody that partakes in creating crop circles and view as artistic expression. But come on, how is that possible overnight in the middle of a fucking rural field in the dark, pitch black dark?
You have to consider the fact that you're not just making like randomized patterns. Like the amount of planning that would have to go in to making these is it's not something you just decide to go do, right? Like if you wanted to hoax this or create a crop circle that you wanted people to believe is real, you would actually have to do some really intricate planning about like distance and size, design, you'd have to sketch it out, you'd have to square the circles of the patterns you're doing, because the geometric shapes that come out of these, you're just talking about hours and hours and hours of manpower. But then, you add into the fact that a lot of these locations that have these crop circles that are unexplainable, like you said, they have unexplainable physical effects that are reported and measured in the area. So like you said, the magnetic stuff, but there's also like the altered germination rates of the plants themselves. So it's like literally the soil is changed from whatever's interacting with it. And that to me is like a dead giveaway that something more is happening.
One thing I want to throw in is I did watch a documentary on crop circles years ago. And not only did they talk about the electrical phenomenon that we just mentioned, there was also, how do I put this? This dude in the documentary said he went to a crop circle and it affected him physically, in which, like, for some
Mhm.
reason he became aroused, which was fucking weird. So I think you can, by the tone of my voice, talking about the two pranksters and the condescending attitude I've had towards them for the entirety of the show, I'm sure you can tell what camp I'm in when it comes to crop circles. And it's the same camp when it comes to the aliens. I just, when there's something that we can't explain, it doesn't automatically fucking mean it's a hoax.
Mhm.
But go on.
So the first one that I want to approach that we could talk about, we'll poke at it, because I think like this one example of a crop circle has a little bit more of a stink of being man-made. However, there were some really interesting factors that point to the other direction, that it seems like it would be highly unlikely to be hoaxed by humans. So this one was called the Milk Hill crop circles, which, if you know anything about crop circles, you've probably heard about this before. You've seen the intricate designs. It's basically 409 different variations of size circles, and they're spiraling outward. The sheer size of this, I think it was dubbed the massive galaxy, or the Julia set like fractal, like in terms of design. But the thing that really stood out to people is at the time, at least, it was the largest formation of a crop circle ever recorded, 900 feet across, 409 circles of varying sizes spiraling out in one swirl like direction, almost like a spiral galaxy if you look at it. The big thing that stood out about the two big factors is the size, 900 feet across, and the fact that it happened overnight. So we can go into what we think about the specifics of that, but to me that's like, wow, like, you really have to have your shit together as like a group that's faking this sort of thing. And you have to have, like I said earlier, you have to have all this planned out, like mathematically. Think about the fact they didn't have drones in 2001 that were accessible for, like, the regular public, and they had kind of okay GPS, but they didn't really have overhead, unless they had like a helicopter or something. Like, they didn't have anything overhead to kind of coordinate or plan all this. It would have had to have been completely planned from the ground on like a piece of paper and coordinated with multiple people. Apparently that's not undoable. Like, it would, best estimates say that it would take about 10 to 15 skilled individuals with GPS making this. Maybe it would take 8 hours or something overnight to do that. However, if you really look at just the way that it was set up, and the way that it spiraled out in the pattern, it was almost perfect, like, if not perfect. Are there people out there who are they able to coordinate that well on something so huge? It's not like they're out there every day, like, practicing making crop circles. That just seems to me like unlikely that someone could do it so perfectly, or a group could do it so perfectly.
I saw the pictures. It's very complex. If someone did this, or a group of people did this, kudos. That's really fucking awesome. But again, a part of me is like, how? Who the
Yeah, even if
hell
you have
does
like
this for
15.
a prank?
I know, right? Yeah.
Like, who has enough time on their hands to create something so elaborate? Because if I was an artist, right? If I was an artist and I made something that elaborate, that type of crop circle so fucking
Where's
elaborate,
where's my
you
money?
best fucking believe I will make sure everyone fucking knows. I did that. I'm
Yeah.
responsible for that. Yeah, that's how fucking skilled I am. If I could do this with with freaking with crops, what do you think I could do, with paint and a canvas or
Right.
other artistic avenues? So that's the thing. Anytime one of these show up, it's like, oh, it's those two guys in England that did it. Okay, they couldn't have done all of them. Again, I go back to the complexity of it. That's the
Yeah.
only thing that gets me. If it was just a regular fucking circle, fine, fine. But the fact that they're so complex and they're so unique looking, and some of them look fucking brilliant. I will give them that. They look amazing. That's like the one chink in the armor of the hoax claim for all of these. It's like, okay, yeah, some of them are close to the road, so it's accessible to the public. Fine, I'll concede that.
But nobody came forward and reported seeing anybody doing anything.
Exactly. And then it just appears overnight. So it's one of those things where maybe there is something going on, similar to when pilots see a UFO while they're flying, either in the Air Force or commercial liners. No, you didn't. But I have to report, no, you didn't. You didn't see anything. So I view it as the same thing. It's like, nope, no, it was just people pranking. Like, okay, so Dean, if we're gonna from now on, when we're gonna prank people, we're gonna make fucking crop circles. We're gonna waste like 8 hours of our day to make a fucking crop circle as a prank and not
For no
tell
reason.
anyone about it for no fucking
Yeah.
reason. Let's go
Right.
ahead and do that. But the one thing that I wanted to talk about, and maybe it's on your list that you have, because I know you and I have a couple of things we wanted to bring up in general for this topic, is and I hope I don't steal your thunder. And this
Please
is
do.
one of my favorite topics to talk about that involves crop circles. It's the Arecibo message.
Yes, that was on my list, so I'm glad you brought that up.
All right, go for it.
No, 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 no. You go ahead. I explained the first one. Let's hear your version of this up front.
In 1974, there was a powerful radio transmission sent out to space from the Arecibo Observatory in Puerto Rico. They call it a cosmic postcard. So it spells out who we are, what our DNA structure is, what planet we occupy. It showed numbers for basic counting, atomic elements, formulas for DNA nucleotides, the graphic of our double helix. It had a human figure, it had the solar system diagram, and it had a diagram of the Arecibo telescope to show where it was transmitted. So, fine and dandy. Astronomers send this out, 1974. When do we get a supposed response?
The Arecibo reply to that message that was sent out was supposedly received in the form of a crop circle on 19 August 2001. Interestingly enough, what happened in August 2001 as well? The Milk Hill crop circles. So the Milk Hill crop circles that we just talked about supposedly happened the night of August 11th, and then August 12th, 2001. Everybody saw the 900 feet, 409 circle crop formation. Only a couple weeks later, probably not too far away, near the Chilbolton Radio Telescope in Hampshire, UK, we have another crop circle, 75 feet wide, 120 feet long. So basically looks like a big rectangle standing up from a certain perspective, but the way you're supposed to look at it, except the difference is it's got an alien looking, large headed alien creature with the double helix, but the left strand of the double helix DNA is slightly different. It's not in perfect harmony with the right side of the helix, and then you have different representations of elements above it, and then I'm not sure what the pink design is below it, and essentially, like you said, it's a response to the message that the details of humanity in it that would be simple to understand for another advanced non-human race in the galaxy. But what's your take on the Arecibo reply? I mean, just the fact that it came around the same time as the other one, the Milk Hill one, and the fact that it's very intricate, and there's also some interesting mathematical designs, some different representations of life in there based off of what possibly what the aliens would be like. It reminds me of like an old 8-bit video game, but that's like my old ass like thinking about what it looks like.
Well, this is one of my favorite supposed crop circles. This reply. The reason it's one of my favorite ones, it's because it gives a little bit of hope to the notion of extraterrestrial life being out there and being able to communicate with us. One thing I will say is that if this was hoaxed, great job to whoever did it. And whoever did it, 24 years later, you still have not come out to claim credit for this. Maybe the people that do this probably won't come out and claim credit because like a lot of people would be pissed at them. That could always be a factor. But with the Arecibo message reply, if it's real, it's freaking mind blowing that they responded. They told us, what planets they occupied. They shared what their DNA structure looks like. And at the bottom of that crop circle, they even showed the mechanism that they used to receive and transmit their response. I know that, when you send a message out into space, it has to travel. There's always a possibility that that message is still traveling and it's not reached anyone or anything yet. But there's always the possibility that maybe a ship or something was in the trajectory or in the path of that radio signal that was sent out. Something caught it and sent a response back, and that's how long it took to get back to us. One thing about me, dude, I will always try to be reasonable and accept the possibility of a hoax like we always do. But for the the hopeful person in me wanting contact with aliens just to see everything go crazy, I hope and I think this message is real. What are your thoughts on that message?
I honestly think that I would err more on the side of hoax with this one. I'm with you though, in the sense that if there was some kind of desire by extraterrestrials to like contact us, this would be the way to do it. Because they're sure as hell not going to come down and start speaking English. They probably don't even have the same sets of emotions and cognitive functions, and even like we've talked about this before. Like what happens if you have, like, imagine the human race suddenly the human race didn't need to procreate, didn't need to eat food, and just those two, just imagine those two. Like, there's okay, so 100 years later, no need to procreate. What happens to like estrogen? What happens to testosterone and those chemicals in our bodies that drive our functions as male or female, or like, some people born with more or less, like, and there's all kinds of interesting combinations of chemicals in the human body that affect the organism's growth and development and even the way they act and feel. And so if you had extraterrestrials, and not even to mention, if you like take out the food factor from people, to like suddenly, oh, we just have to take a pill or get an injection, we have no cravings for food anymore. Like, how would that change our, because like food is such a staple of our day-to-day interactions. Like, we literally bond as humans over food, and that it generates all kinds of feelings and senses and stuff like that. If they don't have any need to duplicate themselves through like natural means, like one sex versus another, to procreate, or they don't have to eat any actual food, then I feel like they would just not be able to have a real conversation. Even if they could speak English or they could telepathically communicate, there would be like nothing to associate over, except for maybe science, except for, like you said, certain patterns and elements in the universe that the intelligent occupants of the universe share. There'd have to be like a common ground. And so when I look at something like this, I want it to be true, because I feel like I said, I feel like if aliens were to communicate, they would do it this way. So, but if it is a hoax, like you said, props to the people who hoaxed it, because that's pretty ingenious. They already thought about everything I just said. The aliens aren't going to just start speaking English in these crop circles and be like, "Hey, what's up?" Like, it's going to be some kind of intricate mathematical chemical representation way of understanding what they are, who they are. That's the one thing I hold on to for this specific example, the Chill Bolton example, or the Arecibo message, that I think might be true. But at the same time, it looks awfully similar to the original message, and I think one of the critiques of this one is that the difference between the human side versus supposed alien response, there's not much different. There are some differences there, but even like intelligent scientists who understand genomic makeup and double helix DNA and all that stuff, like, there's no basis for them to interpret what has been provided. So that leads me to believe that whoever came up with this, they could have easily just come up with a random pattern that meant nothing. They knew it would mean nothing to anybody. So you're leaving it open to interpretation of what, if it's actually real or not, instead of like it being something that the aliens knew we could interpret in terms of DNA and stuff like that. So it's a little bit too good to be true-ish for me, but I still think there's some interesting aspects to it.
But to add on to that, like, you have to know some sort of basic science in order to craft that response
Mm-hmm.
and what the initial message said from a
Right.
scientific perspective. So, talking about highly intelligent people, great scientific minds deciding to go out to a field and make crop circles. Now, let's think about that for a second. You are an intelligent scientist. Would you want to take 8 hours of your day, or however long it takes to do that, for no other purpose than to prank? I,
Not
I, I,
me.
I
I
can't.
have Dungeons and Dragons to play.
The more complex that they get, the harder it is to explain a hoax. But maybe if they start appearing nowadays, let's say next month, they just start appearing out of nowhere and they're very complex. Given the drone technology that we have, that makes a difference.
Yeah.
But if you're talking about the 70s, 80s, 90s, and early 2000s, maybe there were drones in early 2000s. I don't know. They wouldn't have been accessible as they are right now.
Dude, I mean,
So
we've talked about this so many times. Like, there's no greater time in human history for obfuscation of what's actually happening than today, because there's just so much technology that can be manipulated by a small group of people to
even
make
AI
other
videos, right?
yeah, like yeah, the amplification of false information from whoever wants to do it is so powerful. You're literally giving the keys to the societal kingdom people to anybody who wants to try to hoax or do something. And like there, I mean, there have already been confirmed videos. They came out and people believed them, and then basically came out. People said like, oh, they're fake. You know, we've all
Right.
seen like the hilarious videos of like the politicians doing really hilarious things with other global politicians and then it looks so real but it's really AI. I'm totally with you. Like nowadays, or if crop circles started popping up, just the fact that we live in this time with AI and drone technology and lidar, like we have lidar. If you don't know what lidar is, like lidar technology is this new visual way of representing geographical portions of the globe and layering it so you can basically interpret it in different ways. And like just the fact that we have that, it just completely takes away the magic. And I think there's something to that then. Like crop circles have been dropping off, I think, at the same rate as technology goes up, AI and drones and all that stuff. At the same time, crop circles have been going down in terms of how often they pop up. And I think that like if aliens saw, like they're not going to waste their time. They're like, oh, their technology, like they already didn't believe us with the original crop circles. We're not even going to fucking bother anymore because you already have like groups of them copying us and confusing other humans, and it's just not worth the trouble. And that leads me into the next point that I want to get your perspective on, which is all of these crop circles with the hoaxes and the uncertainty of whether or not they're legit, and the same reality in the 2000s, the late 90s, early 2000s especially. But I think that would be a perfect time for some shadowy entity to step in and pay some guys to be like, hey, listen, they don't have to tell them, but like in their mind, like we have to come up with a way because aliens are trying to communicate with us and we don't want the population to know. So we have to come up with a way to make it seem like this is all a hoax. So let's get a couple guys who are really smart. Let's pay them under the table. Let's get them out there and doing like little projects, and then they come out and claim like, oh no, we actually did this. Like this is 100% us. And then suddenly they have plausible deniability about the actual crop circles that are like legit. What more of a perfect scenario to come up with obfuscation by paying somebody or getting someone to go do the pranks after the real thing happens, and then having the guys come out and say like, we did this. It's all pretend. It sucks in a way because, like, I think there's like legitimacy to some of these crop circles in terms of extraterrestrials, like trying to communicate with us in a kind way, like an open way, like peaceful way. But here come other humans to fucking ruin it. That's the sense that I get with this.
That's a good point that you bring up. That some sort of entity decided, hey, we know that crop circles are real. We know that extraterrestrials are doing it. We know they're trying to communicate with us. We don't want the population to know. So let's put together a team. We need some highly artistic people and we need some highly scientific minds to craft out what we want these crop circles to look like and potentially tell them, share a message. So I think that is completely plausible. And I think what that does and has already done with those two guys back in the 90s saying that they created those circles, it gives, is the word I'm looking for, it would give some sort of government entity plausible deniability for any type of, I guess, government entity, military entity, because we didn't touch on it yet, but could always have military involvement, some sort of exercise, some sort of thing that they're trying to do. Who knows? Maybe they are in cahoots with extraterrestrials for sharing technology and they're testing out technology. Who
I kind of go
fucking
the other
knows?
route. I think if this is legit, if crop circles are really a way by extraterrestrials to communicate, they would have no affiliation with any part of the human race. They would
Sure.
not be working with government or whatever. Like, I think it would be the other way around. Like, they would want to communicate with us equally as an entire race of humans to try to find somebody, like, because they know that we're not all equally intelligent. Like, but they do know that based off of our growth and development as a society, as human, like as a race, there are inherently like people who are intelligent. So they're looking for those people to communicate with because they would probably have the easiest time doing that. However, they might not consider or understand what the government would be afraid of if the truth came out. And I've been thinking about this a lot lately. Like, remember how we would talk about in the past, like, extraterrestrials coming out, disclosure happening, and the government admitting there's aliens and they're here and blah, 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 and how we're being desensitized to all that. I still think, like, I really revisited that in my mind. And I really think that if it did come out today, I still think that you would have a serious destabilization of modern society to the tune of maybe even riots and temporary collapse and violence. Because the reason why I think that is because there are so many people out there who tie their whole being that keeps them structured in society. They're basically tied to the morals of religion or whatever structure they view themselves in the hierarchy of the world. Like, humans are at the top. If you believe in whatever religion you believe in, we were created by a higher entity that's not here, but we were given domain over the earth, et cetera, et cetera. That, I think, that's the quintessential, for the most part, full gambit of modern religion that people believe in, regardless of whatever religion you occupy. So if suddenly it came out that, oh no, we're no longer at the top of the proverbial evolutionary food chain, not that aliens would necessarily eat us, but you know what I mean, like, they're above us in intelligence and they've been here longer, they have greater technology, like all of those things, we would be number 2 or even lower. And then suddenly, I think a lot of people would not you and me, but like, I think some people out there that would completely dismantle their view of themselves in their reality, and then they would just say fuck it. Like, it might not happen immediately. It might not happen like they might not just like hear aliens are here and then the next day they're out like shooting people in the face and drinking booze like every day. But I think that if you disclosed extraterrestrials to the human population, I think a good amount of people would start to slide over time because their view of themselves in the world would be corrupted, and that would shake the grounds of who they are. So they might just start being a little bit more abusive with themselves or others. They might just start, doing some, not going to work and doing certain things that they should be doing that they would otherwise be motivated to do based off of their belief structure. And so that just, I know that was a long winded thing, but going back to the crop circles, I think it's the same thing. Like, if you have extraterrestrials who are trying to communicate with the smartest of us for positive communication, you still would have the governments of the world who think that we can't handle it or believe what I just said to be true that would happen if a disclosure happened. So they would have to come up with a way to, like you said, have plausible deniability of what's actually going on. It's like, oh no, 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 no. These complex structures, which by the way, they're showing up in crops that can regrow. That's something that I feel like people don't talk about enough is these messages, supposed alien messages, they are showing up in areas where there's regrowth. And so they're
Right.
not doing any permanent damage. They're not like etching, a laser in the side of a stone that's going to be permanent. They're putting it into something that is going to be regrown in a matter of weeks, months or weeks or whatever. And that's kind of gentle. Like, what better place to put a message than where people are going to go pick their crops, they're going to see it, but you're also not doing long standing harm to the environment. Like, that just to me is the perfect sign that some of these are legitimate. So to tie it all up in a nice little bow, I think that these messages did start off as actual extraterrestrial messages, but then the human uncertainty got the better of our governments or whoever's in charge, and they're like, hey, we can't let this fucking come out, we can't let the aliens start communicating, we can't, we have to be the middleman still. So they have to, like, basically find a way to etch all this out, creating these hoaxes or getting people to create these hoaxes.
And that take makes sense. The last thing I want to say to tie it back in with the crop circles, and we've had conversation ad nauseum about what would happen if we had disclosure via crop circles, or aliens came down, or we had our government just tell us directly. I think people that would go down that path, that kind of says a lot about, I guess, you. So, I mean, it's if that would break your belief structure and who you are as a person, I don't know, man. That's a tough call. You're
No,
that
I mean,
fucking fragile that
yeah,
the existence of other beings is gonna fucking drive you insane. Take a look at yourself in the fucking mirror. If
yeah,
that is you, understand very quickly that we live on a planet that is hurtling millions of miles per hour through space in a galaxy, the Milky Way galaxy, that's on a fucking collision course with the Andromeda galaxy, and there are millions and millions of other galaxies that are out there, and millions of other star systems and solar systems in our backyard and in our galaxy in general, that the concept of extraterrestrials is not far-fetched. It's
yeah,
not.
and I'm with you. I think the point that I would wanna drive home is it's not a question of like, it's I think it's not the best thing or the right thing to do to kinda look at somebody and say, "You are a shitbag for ruining." I think it's just, like, the nature of the beast in the sense of, like, the way that humans are. And I don't think most people, like I said, I don't think they would suddenly snap and go crazy immediately if extraterrestrials were confirmed to be out there. I think what would happen, and I'm not saying that's right or wrong, I'm just saying like this is the sad state of like no amount of letting people know that like, oh, if you go crazy you're ruining it for the rest of us, which is kind of true, but at the same time like it's not going to change. I think if disclosure happened, I'm starting to get the sense that at least not even most people, but some people enough to create problems in society, they would just backslide into think about the implications of that. Like if you have somebody who believes in like they kind of believe in their religion and they kind of go along believing that if they do the certain things they do in this world, they're going to be on the other side with their loved ones and all that stuff. Like I'm not saying that suddenly isn't true, but I'm saying I think that deep down subconsciously quite a few people would have that narrative in their mind shaken by any reality of extraterrestrials who are completely outside of the evolutionary chain of events that humans were a part of. And deep down, even the dumbest person would get that implication. And I'm not saying they would choose, they wouldn't say like, I don't think they would go like this. I don't think they would be like, wait a minute, aliens are real? Fuck it. I'm gonna go drink and do horror. Screw my family, like screw my job. I'm just gonna go get drunk and then kill myself. I don't think that's what's gonna happen. I think that people are going to like keep living their lives like they usually do, but months, maybe even years go by and that reality kind of is like weighing on them, and they're just like they're realizing more and more that what they built up their foundation on that keeps them sane and structured is shaken. And then some people might let negative things creep into their lives, kind of like a big or a trickle of a fuck it moment. Maybe they'll eat a little bit more donuts than they should. Maybe they'll be a little bit more angry and violent than they should be. Maybe they'll have that extra drink every once in a while and it gets worse and worse and worse and worse. That's what
But
I'm afraid of.
okay, I understand that. Do we have to
Again, not most
coddle?
people.
No, I'm just saying
No,
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 no, no.
no. Yeah.
And I'm not like again, I'm not trying to be dismissive or anything. Is it the responsibility of society to coddle these people?
No, no, no,
Because
no.
it isn't.
Yeah.
It isn't.
But my concern
Because
of what's gonna happen though, it's not about
what
coddling them.
I
Like, it's
mean,
it's it's basically really quick, it's basically how much can somebody fuck up everything for the rest of us? That's really what the question like, regardless of coddling them or not, like, if
sure.
you give someone a gun and you're like, "Don't start shooting people," but you don't know that person, you're not gonna give them the gun because you don't really know what they're gonna do with it. So it's the same way, like, we're all gonna come into this realization that extraterrestrials are real and stuff, and you can't control what they're gonna do. They might fuck it up for the rest of us. That's kind of what I'm getting after.
But
I don't
I
know.
mean, there would still be societal ramifications for people that do stupid shit.
Sure.
It's
Yeah.
not like extraterrestrials will come down and then our entire government and societal structure would just fucking not exist anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
It would
There would
still
still
be the
be
same. It would still
right.
be present. It would still be there. And
Laws and
gradually,
yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
the laws would still apply. It's not like the police force would be like, okay, aliens are here. Go do what you want. Like, you go do something stupid. Like, you're going to get the canine sicked on you. Like, I don't know what the fuck to tell you. Like, it's not
Right.
get out of jail for free card. And
Right.
if those extraterrestrials have the same sense of justice as we do, and they want to help us and they want to get involved, fuck, not only you got the police force on your ass, you got fucking aliens coming like, "Hey, asshole, stop
Yeah.
it." I that's just the wishful thinking. You bring up the religious perspective, and I don't wanna say it's a problem. What I'm trying to say is, for someone that was an atheist and through my own experiences, I decided to go down a religious path. I'm not the most religious person. I am not, you know, I'm not great at it. I'll put it that way, okay? I have some flexibility in my thinking and in my mentality. That's just how I
Which is
am.
important
That's just
because
how I was
not
built.
everybody has that though. That's the danger.
You have to be open to the fact that things change. They
Yeah.
won't change immediately,
Right.
but they change over time. For example, when electricity was starting, there was a fucking political cartoon of like electrical wires shooting out from electrical poles, like electrocuting people. And the same thing applied with these fucking morons that said 5G is gonna create Skynet or whatever bullshit people were fucking talking about. Like, oh, look, I got the iPhone, right here. Fucking 5G. It says it right there.
It's 6G now. We've gotten past the 5G.
We gotten past the 5G. As long as it fucking works properly, because that's my gripe
Right.
with all these technologies. Advertise it and it doesn't fucking work properly. But you get the point I'm saying. With the crop circles, with extraterrestrials, look, man, if they're out there, they're out there. If we know they exist, fucking tell us they exist. Because if extraterrestrials exist, if I know extraterrestrials exist, and I go fucking tell my neighbor extraterrestrials exist, put on the news, we're like, oh wow, that's cool. That's interesting. I gotta go cut my grass.
And then a
Like,
week later, he's got a shotgun. Ah! Just
right?
shooting in the
I mean,
sky.
maybe one or two people you'll have that
But that might
are
be
that
enough. One or two might be enough to fuck it up for everybody.
dude,
You
I
don't think
wouldn't
so?
say so because how many
Okay.
other people on this fucking planet or even in our country like buy all these fucking supplies and go live in the fucking mountains because they think that
Yeah. Yeah.
the military is going to come get them.
Right.
Like the fucking Cold War, man. Literal fucking bunkers. People like you can buy houses in Western Pennsylvania that have literal fucking bunkers built in their backyard.
My grandfather had a house with a bunker in it. It was pretty cool.
Exactly. Someone paid out of pocket to have that built.
Right.
So I think it's just
I
I don't
hope
know.
you're right.
People are annoying.
I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong. I hope you're right. I hope that I still think that I think we're like 5-10 years away from disclosure. I hope that in the best case scenario, here's what I would like to happen. If AI is going to backslide us into slavery again, which I'm not going to talk about it now, but I can talk about ways why that could actually really happen. It has to do with like robots and self-replicating robots and really rich people being able to build their own robots and AI data centers to like, I think we're going back to feudal medieval times where it was like
But with hyper
warring.
technology.
Yeah, where you know how like it used to be like warring factions and they were like one leader who had the biggest army and they would try to crush another one and like absorb their land. I think that like we're going to see billionaires being feudal lords again with their own sets of AI and advanced robotics that are weaponry, and they're going to go to war over each other, and whoever's AI and robots are better is going to grab up more land, and the rest of us are just going to be like operating as slaves. Like that's my fear. But what I was going to say is tying that back in, if that's the worst case scenario with AI, I hope that's not going to happen, by the way. But if that does happen, my dream is that the aliens will come down, benevolent aliens, be like, okay, we've watched this shit long enough. You people who are in power, who are ruining it for 90% of the other people on this planet, you're going to Mars, like you're out. You're going to go be sent to some colony and see what it's like to live without your billions of dollars. And the rest, we're going to help the rest of society build things into a utopia. And that, like, that's a long shot. But if there are aliens and if shit's going to go to hell in a handbasket in the next like 20 years, I kind of hope that's how it plays out. But I know that's like wishing for the moon when, you're really just going to get a little hunk of cheese. Like it's probably not going to happen that way. But I'm terrified and hopeful. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I just don't care anymore.
Yeah, you're just done. You just fuck it.
I'm just done. Come
When
on.
am I gonna die?
No, not that far. I
I know.
just, if they're making the crop circles, make it legible, please. Throw some more binary code so we could decipher what you're saying.
Yeah.
Let us know if there's more of them out there. Something. Give us something.
I do feel though too that like that actually might shoot this whole crop circle thing in the foot, which is if there was a real message and it really was based off of some kind of like geometric shape language or like you said code or whatever. I feel like some really smart people would come across that and be able to decipher it. And we should have seen by now someone in the scientific community who found some kind of amazing structural code come out and be like, "Oh my god, it mean this is the interpretation XYZ, like this is what it's saying." I feel like we should have heard that already, but the scientific community is silent, which
Or they don't
doesn't
want it, or they,
or they're
yeah,
being
or it's
blocked, right?
suppressed. Yeah.
Fair enough, fair enough. Yeah.
With like Bob Lazar, right? You know who that
Mhm.
is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Worked at where the fuck did he work? One of those areas.
It's like Skunk Works area somewhere south of Area 51 or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. And he would take people at night and they would fucking watch the UFOs. And he's like, I saw all this shit and there was proof like that he worked there and he had his ID card and everything like that. So I wouldn't be surprised if they're like, okay, all right, keep it under wraps, you know? I'm sure there are things that you and I do for work that are like, okay, this is confidential, in-house only information that can only be shared with X group of people.
Right.
So the
Yeah.
same thing could apply on that level.
Which, by the way, though, did you happen to see? There's videos popping up now of I don't know that I forget the guy what his name is, but he's like a pretty famous podcast like interviewer guy. I think he was like a former operator, like he worked in the government or something or the military, and he's got the shaved head. He was interviewing some other guy who was he was apparently like saying legitimately that he's sure now that the cigar or the pill shaped UFO that was a staple in UFO sightings for years was actually a piece of United States private company technology. I forget if it was like Northrop Grumman or it was like there was some kind of like he mentioned some kind of company. He's like, yeah, this is definitely their technology, meaning he saw a document that came out that suggested they had the cigar shaped flying UFO technology or whatever. So we're starting to see like trickles of confirmation that these objects are like they were truly viewed and they were real objects, but they were owned and operated by these secret contracting companies that worked for the government that would build and test these technologies.
But
So,
that's so
uh,
convenient. That's such a
right?
convenient cop out though, because you have literal fucking people. I know we diverted so far away from crop circles.
We're still on UFOs. We're still on UFOs.
Yeah, we're still on the UFO topic, but that is such a convenient fucking cop out.
Yeah.
Oh, it's contracted by this secret company that does military contracts that, they're not publicly listed unless you're involved in the company or in the military in this sector doing this type of work and experimentation, you won't know they exist. That's fucking convenient because you have literal high ranking officials in the Air Force and other branches of the military putting their fucking livelihood on the line and their reputation on the line to come out and report this stuff. And all of a sudden, a
Yeah.
podcaster is like, "Oh, it's it's from this contracting company." Like the fuck, man. Like people
But what
can't be that fucking stupid to believe that shit.
Yeah. Why now though? I don't understand why now because we're talking about like 4 years ish after that whole big disclosure crap that went on in the US government with the Senate hearings and the confirmation, all that stuff. Like, yes, we're talking about disclosure. Yes, we're talking about real life examples. And these are all real things that are unexplainable. And the government, we talked about this in other episodes, but suddenly it dropped off. And then suddenly now, more recently, we're getting away from the alien um, justification again that these things are that they're tied to extraterrestrials, and we're getting back on the idea that they're all homegrown government technology, ebbing and flowing back and forth, which is confusing to me. I just, it's just crazy how that goes back and forth like that.
Yeah, I get it. Because it's the age-old thing that they've been doing for the past 85 years. Oh,
Hmm.
it's a weather balloon. Oh, it's this. Oh, it's the military. Oh, it's always the military. Because aside from what the military shows you, you don't know what they have. Unless you're in it, you don't know what they have.
Right.
So what you get surface level is what they want you to see. And I'm not being conspiratorial.
I had friends in the military who told me
Right,
about,
yes.
stories and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like the fucking weapon that they have that like they just blast at you and it could make you like have a headache and throw
Oh,
up and all that shit.
I
Like,
I
right?
just I reread an article. Dude, this is so weird you bring this up. I reread an article just yesterday, the Havana syndrome. It started in Havana, Cuba, when contractor or like people who worked for the US government started reporting these weird ringings in their ears, and they had these just nausea, vomiting, and people were talking about it possibly being a directed energy weapon and stuff like that, and like they didn't know who was behind it. That surreptitiously went away, huh? That was a real phenomena, by the way, that
Uh-huh.
actually happened to real people. If you're not familiar with this, go look up
Yeah.
the Havana syndrome. If you're not familiar, this is real people working for the real US government who really reported this happening. It's awfully fishy. Like, it would really suck like some other country had that technology to disrupt other people without any verifiability or attribution, basically meaning you can get away with it by
Yep.
shooting that at somebody and making their life like fall apart. That's terrifying.
But I mean, I can understand, with that podcaster saying like, "Oh, it's, a contractor.
Mhm.
It's government, it's US military technology via a contractor building and testing this stuff." Who knows? Like if somebody came to me and was like, "Here's $10 million, shut the fuck up, put this out there, say it, you get paid, that's
I'll
it.
do it for 5. Yeah.
Here. Yeah. Fine. I'll do it. Stop talking
Yeah.
about it. Message received." You know?
And if
Stop bringing people on.
Chris and I suddenly stop recording, we either got $5 million each to shut up, or we just were told to shut up and are buried
Yeah.
in our backyard somewhere.
Right, right. But no, all jokes aside, I always like talking about this stuff.
There might even be some room for more discussion as we learn more about them and how they tie into these other technologies. And so I'm sure there's something else out there that we missed.
See what happens when I let you pick the topic of the day. We
Yeah.
go from cryptids to hauntings, talking about fucking geometric shapes on farmland. Are you
Pretty
happy?
pictures.
Are you happy?
Oh,
But no,
the
like
poor
on a
farmers.
serious note, I did like this topic. I've always been fascinated by this topic. I didn't mind talking about it. And I'm going to throw some open discourse out for our listeners. Kind of like a call to action here. What are your thoughts on crop circles? Shoot us an email. I know some of you emailed us when we threw out our call to action about Dogman and trying to find a bit more information about Dogman and Dogman encounters. So I appreciate that. And the same applies here. Shoot us an email at twroadpodcast@gmail.com. Let us know what you think about crop circles. Do you think they're done by extraterrestrials? Do you think it's completely hoaxed and bullshit? And I hope you enjoyed today's episode, folks. Thanks for tuning into today's episode of The Wandering Road. You can find us on Apple, Google, Spotify, and most podcast platforms. Be sure to subscribe and share. Also, don't forget to give a follow on Instagram at twroadpodcast and follow my TikTok at twrpodcast. Take care, and I'll catch you on the next one.